Fine Music Breakfast with Annabelle Drumm.
And we have in the studio the beautiful Rachael Beesley. Hello, Rachael.
Good morning, Annabelle.
Thank you for joining us today from the Australian Romantic and Classical Orchestra. Now, would you like to tell us a little bit about the orchestra? Because not everybody is familiar with the Australian Romantic and Classical Orchestra. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, we had the wonderful pleasure to work with Richard Gill over many years. In fact, I've been able to do some incredible work with Richard in the opera and also on stage with concerts. And my colleague and I, Nicole van Bruggen-Harris and myself, we'd been working in Europe and studying in Europe for many years, over 15 years, and really specialising in historic performance of
and wonderful
classical
places that you're working in, Les Arts Florissants,
Yes.
Orchestra of the Age of Enlightenment. They're
Yes.
wonderful.
Yeah. And Nicole's been having, she has a wonderful career working in Denmark as well. And we're both really passionate about bringing what we have experienced and learnt in Europe and bringing that back to Australia. And that sort of came over a number of years of coming back and performing with various ensembles here. But we were performing together with Richard, and we just came up with this idea in one of the intervals of Marriage of Figaro. And we
in
said,
the interval, best time to come up with a good idea.
Exactly. And we came up with this idea to really create an ensemble in Australia, an orchestra that specialises in performing the classical and romantic repertoire, because it tends to be the early music scene is very much focused on the Baroque repertoire, and we really wanted to expand that genre and show that there are wonderful historical treatises, and there's recordings. There's so much information about different expressive devices that you can use, and in fact the instruments, the development of those instruments over the 18th and 19th century. And there's so much to learn, and I think Australia is just really hungry for that. I think the musicians, the audience, and also the young people are really, really curious to find out more about this repertoire. And so we formed this orchestra 5 years ago with a huge support of the musicians who performed at that opening concert. And from that moment on, we just really noticed this just joy and energy when we bring together that group of musicians. Many who live still in Europe, but many who are based in Australia. And we really work together for each project. We come together project-based every at the moment we have a subscription series, so we have 3 concerts.
So is it based here in Sydney? Or
it's based where the projects are rehearsed. So yeah, we have that fluidity in where we can put a rehearsals based on where the concerts are. It's mobile, yeah, and because we're really a national orchestra, so we really wanted to include the sort of the bass in different places. So,
right. And the instruments. Tell me a bit about the instruments you're using.
Yeah, well, it's such a pleasure playing on those. My own violin is from Vienna, so it's from the early 19th century, so from this time when these works were being written by Mozart and Beethoven, and you just feel that kind of energy coming through them, that they've got this story to tell, and they really want to tell that. We also have some fantastic opportunities to have replicas of those instruments, so it's not always the case of the original ones, especially with the wind instruments, because they went through when you're playing those instruments, you can't really
do they sort of wear out?
Because of the humidity through them. Right. But they have this just extraordinary renaissance of instrument makers who are now making those instruments. And there's such we sort of think, okay, there's a Baroque instrument, then there's a modern instrument, but there's this whole world in between where these makers and the composers were really active in trying to come up with new ideas and new ways of exploring the sound colours, but they're quite different sound colours to what you would expect with a modern setup. And I think a lot of things have been lost in the modern world. We've sort of homogenised the sound. Everything is very equal all over the instrument, and what we enjoy and what we really liked getting out of these the classical and early romantic instruments is it's kind of the nuance, the quirkiness that you find in those instruments. It's a really unique quality, and when you bring those instruments together in either the orchestral or chamber music setting, you have it just really opens your mind up to what these composers were writing for and what they were trying to express through those instruments.
Because sometimes we only get to hear them by recording, so we get to hear a very good quality version of what the recording sounds like. But to me, it sounds like some of those period instruments, they were designed for smaller venues anyway, so they've got a kind of a comfortable sound.
Yeah,
I like to describe them like an old slipper, they're so cool.
Yes.
And maybe it's just because they've been used for 200 years or something.
It can be, but it is a different. We have to sort of tune in a different way to listen to the quality of those sounds. But especially in the City Recital Hall, we really notice how incredible that kind of small venue can highlight those nuances in the sound, and they really it's like the instruments are speaking to you, and I think that's a very important part of how we look at the music. We're really looking at as a language, as a rhetorical language, and that communication with the musicians on stage, but with the audience through these instruments is a really powerful thing.
And now the orchestra itself, and Richard,
yes,
you're doing like a number of different sorts of things, not just concerts, are you? You're doing talks?
Yeah, we have these wonderful education programs, and we run youth orchestras, the Young Mannheim Symphonists, and we also go into schools and look really. Education is a real key feature of this orchestra. And Richard has this wonderful series that we have launched this year. Richard Gilbert Presents as a voyage of musical discovery, and we had our second concert on Tuesday night, and it's so incredible to have the hall packed full of young music students and also audience members who are also coming along and really discovering how Richard sees the music and how he really draws out all these different themes. This time it was textures and timbres. And
was it City Recital Hall?
City Recital Hall, yes.
That's a big group then. Fill it up.
Yeah, completely full. And we present another ensemble as part of this series. So the concert this week was with Ensemble Offspring, so a contemporary music ensemble, and we had 3 female composers represented in that program. So it's really showing how composers throughout time have use their resources and how they can use those instruments and create these different textures and timbres. Right. And for each program that we do a different collaboration with another ensemble, and we highlight a different aspect of the curriculum.
Lovely. Well, you've got a concert coming up tomorrow night.
Yes, we
That's
do.
really good. And that includes some Mozart. So I thought, let's just have a little piece from Eine kleine Nachtmusik, which is part of the program. A lovely, well-known piece of music. So that's going to be on the program coming up tomorrow night.
Yes, that's our opening piece.
That's a good way to open, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it'll be really exciting because we're also going to be doing it in a chamber version. So it's going to have the real sort of highlighting of each part in a way that orchestrally you don't hear that so often.
No,
so,
okay,
yeah.
And it's called Classical Melodies.
Yes.
Yep. And how did you choose the program for this one?
Well, I mean, this is really, Eine kleine is really this timeless piece of music that it is extraordinary how popular it is, and can't even imagine when Mozart wrote that as a serenade, as just sort of part of his normal compositional life, that this piece would still remain such a popular favourite. And so to pair that with the classical composers that we really love and know, we chose a work by Beethoven, the string quintet called The Storm. And there's a little link there because in our first concert we performed the Pastoral Melodies, which in Pastoral Melodies we performed the famous Beethoven Sixth Pastoral Symphony, and that has a storm scene in it as well. So we've got this little theme running through.
A little stormy theme.
A stormy theme, yes, exactly. So that was, and it's not performed that often. It's for 2 violas, so 2 violins, 2 violas and cello. So it's a fabulous Opus 29. It's early in Beethoven's writing, but he just has all these ideas. It's like you can hear every idea. He's just put them in this quintet, and then later on you hear them explode into the symphony. So
wow,
that's a really great thing. And to contrast this, we have these wonderful works by Peter von Winter and Vincenzo Gambaro, composers that you may not have heard of.
No, we don't hear about them so often.
No, and these works are going to include the fantastic wind instruments of the Australian Romantic and Classical Orchestras, and they're sort of the principal players. They're going to be performing these works. And so we've got an octet, which is for winds and strings by Peter von Winter. And we have a wind quartet by Vincenzo Gambaro. And these are all from the sort of early 19th century. And they really show the qualities of these instruments, and in a very playful way as well. They obviously had a lot of character, these composers, and you can really hear that coming through their works.
And that makes such a difference, don't you think? Because sometimes when people listen to classical, I think we're all very serious and we don't, it's all very deep and meaningful, when in fact there is so much playful music, isn't there?
Yeah,
in the classical.
absolutely. And you hear these, lovely little jokes that go around. And also in the way that we perform, there's a lot of, when you have repeats in the music, or when you have a set of variations, there's an opportunity for the performer to improvise as well. So we have a lot of fun on stage because we come up with different ways to play it every time.
Well, that's the joy of the live performance, right? Yeah,
yes.
it's not like a studio thing where you go over it a million times till it's perfect. This is about the communication between the musicians.
Yes.
And the recital hall's got such fabulous acoustics, like you said before.
Yeah.
It's really, you can pull out every little individual piece.
Yes.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's coming up tomorrow night, and there's a pre-concert talk as well, 6:45, which is always helpful because it really helps people appreciate the music, and they can pick out things, can't they?
Yeah, and they also get the opportunity to see the instruments up close. So we bring the performers in, the individual musicians in, and they talk about their instrument and where their instrument came from, and we really try to bring that continuity between the two.
Oh, that's going to be fantastic. So that's tomorrow night. Now, here at Fine Music, we've got a double pass to give away. So if you can ring in to reception, you've got till 9 a.m. That's all. It's not like CD of the Week, which is a bit later. 9 a.m. is the cut-off point for the double pass. If you ring and leave your name and phone number on our answer phone and say you're interested in the Australian Romantic and Classical Orchestra at the City Recital Hall tomorrow night, then you go in the draw for the double pass. Anything else we need to add?
Well, I think if anyone, we'd love to have lots of people in the audience, and if you want to have a look at our website, which is arco.org.au. Arco is ARCO. It actually stands for the bow in Italian, so that's a little sort of inside
that's clever.
hint on that, is why we chose this name in the acronym. But the website is that arco.org.au.
That's the important bit.
Yeah, and you can find all the information there about our upcoming concerts and all the tickets as well. So
Otherwise, just show up at City Recital Hall tomorrow night.
7:30.
Or 6:45 if you want to have a closer look at the instruments. Thank you, Rachel, for coming in and seeing us.
Thank you
been
for having me.
delightful. Thanks.